should be played at high volume. This should be played at high volume. This should be played at high volume. Preferably in a residential area.
The following thoughts on Hoppe Hour do not represent Cox Media Group or its sponsoring. Anything you hear may and will be used against you. Thank you. Voted as best local podcast in Tampa Bay by the Creative Loafing. You're listening to Hoppe Hour.
What up? What's happening? This is Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe. And on the phone line is a guy I saw last night absolutely kill it at the comedy club Side Splitters here in Tampa Bay. On the phone line is comedian Michael Palascak. What's up, dude?
What's up?
Nothing much, man. I really liked your show last night. It was really refreshing. I just loved how you went from talking about cell phones to your girlfriend. It was a really good mix of comedy.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I just talk about things that bother me in my life, I guess, and those things came up at the same time.
I wanted to ask you this. Are there
Yeah.
positives to your girlfriend? Because it was like 30 minutes of you going on a roast, and I'm sure she's a nice person, but I mean...
Yeah. No, yeah, for sure. No, there's definitely positives. I thought about that when I was traveling back because I was like, a lot of the stuff is kind of newer. But yeah, she's great. She's very friendly and charming and funny and nice and caring.
You never explained during the show, how did you guys first meet?
She was taking an improv class in Chicago at the same time as my roommate from college.
Yeah.
And so they were all hanging out one night when I was working in Chicago, and he invited me to hang out, and that's where I met her.
No, I wanted to ask you this, too. I'm actually from Chicago. I'm from Mount Prospect. I saw that you had a 708 number. Are you from Chicago?
Yeah, I'm in Orland Park right now.
Oh, wow, dude.
Suburb.
Yeah, I grew up right by the racetrack in Arlington Heights, so I know every part of Chicago. Did you grow up there?
We moved here when I was 17, so kind of. Like, I spent like 10 years.
What's your take on the city? To me, I think it's going downhill. I think the weather's getting worse, and I think the city's just beginning to crumble. Do you ever get that vibe living there?
Well, the weather, I just assume this is always how it's been. So when the weather gets really bad in January, I'm just like, well, this is how it is. I know that, like, I know there's some really cool stuff. Like, there's, like, some new parks, and they do a lot of cool stuff like that. There's, like, they have some violence problems, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
That's scary. But from a beautification standpoint, I think it looks nice, and I enjoy it a lot.
What is the comedy scene like Chicago? I know it's very competitive.
Yeah, it's grown a ton. When I first started, there was like an open mic pretty much every night and only one comedy club and like maybe one or two like showcases.
Yeah.
And now there's like multiple clubs that have opened up and a lot of showcases. And I remember there would be like one open mic when I started that everyone would go to, and there'd be like 50 comics. And I think it's like way more than that now in the city. So it's really grown.
How much have you grown over the years as comedy? Because for me, I began in radio. I wanted to be the typical shock jock that talks shit and is just edgy. And now I do more of a show where it's just people talking. So for you, how have you grown as a comedian over the years?
Yeah, when I first started, I really liked Mitch Hedberg, and I think I started out in like a comedy club environment. So a lot of my jokes were like definitely shorter and set up punchline, and they were mostly based off my life, but sometimes if something happened on stage that was funnier than what my life was, I would go there. But however many years ago, it sort of transitioned into a thing where it's like more like jokes within bigger stories, and everything that I say on stage is true now. Like 100%.
That's what I loved about you too last night, was you would be talking about this thing that happened to you, and you would break it down for 5 minutes, but you had me captivated during every time you would talk about something new. Most comics, when they talk about the same topic for a long time, with my ADHD, I cut out. But that's what you did so well last night, Michael, was you talked about your girlfriend, you talked about issues with T-Mobile, but you never lost my attention. It was really captivating.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. I think that's because like there were shows where I definitely lost people's attention, and I was like, well, I should stop talking about that, or I should fix it. Stand-up's definitely a trial and error process. So yeah, thanks.
Who are some of the mentors that have helped you grow over the years in comedy?
Tommy Johnigan was probably definitely one of the biggest because we kind of started at the same time, but he went on the road right away, and he sort of got everything quickly. So I would definitely talk to him a lot. And then Chad Daniels was another one who's very nice to me. And then the people who I started out in Chicago with that were already doing it, and they're kind of Chicago people that travel a little bit, but not as much. Brian Hicks and Ken Schultz and Brian Aldridge and Denise Ramsden were all comedians who like just taught me the basics about hosting a show, and sort of like I would watch them and see how they did jokes and stuff.
It seemed like you had a fun time last night here in Tampa, and I saw that you tweeted that you like the Trop. So obviously you like Tampa Bay. But what are some cities that don't really seem to get your type of humor? Because comics always talk about certain parts of the country just don't get it.
That's interesting. I feel like I've been lucky starting up in Chicago because there's definitely like Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, and those states are just grateful that you came, that you just showed up. So they're always really good. But I did a show one time in like Southern Illinois at a bowling alley, and that wasn't very fun. So I think that city definitely didn't get it. But also it was at a bowling alley, so it's hard to tell.
Now, when you're doing these gigs that have no life, how do you just keep on trucking? Because it's different than an open mic where you can just walk off. What is the key when you know you're bombing and you don't feel the vibe at all? How do you keep on being motivated during the set?
Yeah, I think like luckily I've grown now to a point where it's you're never like completely bombing if you're headlining. Like there's always going to be some people that are laughing. But if there are, like there was a moment a couple of years ago where I was featuring in a room in Toledo where it was not going well, and I literally was just up there for pure revenge. Like I just wanted to stay up there as long as I could to make them know that they're not going to see the headliner until I decide. And that's not a positive way to handle it. I think the best way to handle it is just to talk to the people who are laughing at you and work with them. But that's what got me through that moment.
Now, how do hecklers treat you? Because last night it was a very well-behaved crowd that really dug the show. But have you had to deal with hecklers in the past?
Yeah, I feel like sometimes usually clubs are good about holding that down. Sometimes there'll be a person that yells out something, and really if one of the guys that kind of started out with was TJ Miller, and he was really good at talking to the crowd, and he would say that all you have to do is like analyze what they said. Like they're gonna say something stupid, and if you have the microphone, they're gonna be stupid. You're gonna be able to control the situation. So usually, if someone does say something, it's easy to make it funny or just make it so they don't want to talk anymore. But yeah, stand up really. I think the biggest problem with hecklers is the ones that aren't talking to you. It's the ones that are just like talking to their table, because that's like super distracting to the person on stage and to the people who are around them, and it's hard to call it to attention to it because not everybody in the crowd even knows that that's happening. So I think those are the worst.
That really pisses me off at a comedy show because it's often, and I'm not being sexist, but often it's girls that are at a bachelorette party that just think they can go and see a funny show and cause a havoc. I saw Nick DiPaolo just annihilate these females at Zanies and Rosemont about 2 years ago, and it was the greatest thing ever. That's what I don't get, Michael, is when these girls come in and they're just chit-chatting and they're wearing their penis hat, and it's like, don't talk in here, please.
Yeah. No, I think the girls, probably a lot of them have never been to a comedy club before, and they're celebrating their friends, so they think they're the show. And it's just like, yeah. But some of those groups are really nice, too. Like, there was a couple of girls on Friday or Saturday, and they were, like, really cool, and they were at a bachelorette party. So I think it's not all of them, but some of them, yeah.
Now, I was talking to Tone Bell. I had him on the show last week, and he said the weirdest thing that ever happened to him after a show was this guy who was married to his wife loved the joke that he made about hand jobs. So he was going to offer his wife to give Tone Bell a hand job, but Tone turned it down. But Tone said it was really weird and awkward. Has there ever been a moment like that or anything where you've had a weird interaction with a fan?
Yeah, I think there's definitely some weird stuff where people like come up and they don't really know how to say what they're thinking, and they might be kind of drunk, and they might just sort of stand near you and just sort of like say something every now and again, and I think that's probably the weirdest part.
Because comedy can
Yeah.
either be funny or not funny for drunk people, I feel like, because you can either pay attention and be well behaved, or they can be angry, weird drunks, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Well-
sometimes the drunk crowd can be the best ever because they don't even know how hard it is to laugh because they don't even feel it, and they're just laughing so much.
What show did you do when you just absolutely nailed it? What was the show where you're like, I'm pretty good at this?
Like at the point in my career when that happened,
Yeah.
I think there's been multiple phases. Like I think, like the first time you ever get a laugh on stage, which was not my first time on stage, like off of a joke, like that was like my second set ever. I felt like, oh, this is great, and then it just keeps that happens every now and again. Like there was a club that I did a guest spot at that I was trying to get work at a couple of years, like maybe a year or two in, and that went really well. And then I felt like that was good, and then like you get through your first like 45 minutes headlining where you felt good about it, and that was like I got it. And then you change your material and you get through your second 45 minutes, and then you feel like you have it. And I think that's a great part about stand-up is that you're always seeing yourself get better as long as you keep doing it.
Now, with all the hard work you put in, how did you get the opportunity to be on Conan O'Brien's TV show?
The booker of that show I met through a comedy festival, the Lucky 21 in Vegas in 2008, and I had been sending him tapes for about two and a half years through the internet, and he would reply. It's about like one every 6 months or whatever. Like I'd send him one like every 2 months, and he would reply like once every 6 months. And then and that kept happening, and he would give me notes. But then I had like 2 new jokes that I sent him after one show, just kind of randomly. I liked the jokes, and he replied right away. And then all of a sudden, like every week, I would send him a new tape. And in 2 months, I had time on stage. So I think he just sort of decided after seeing those 2 jokes that I was going to be on the show soon. And I don't know why. I mean, they were new, and he liked them, so I think that helped out. But yeah, it was about a 2.5 year process from the first time I sent him something.
What is that moment like when you finally find out you're going to be on Conan's TV show doing comedy?
Oh, it was crazy. Because he called me. It was over Christmas, between Christmas and New Year's, and I was supposed to fly back to Chicago, but I had to change I changed all my plans. So it was just like, it was really exciting and fun. But at the same time, I was like, oh, it's just like logistically going to be different now. So it was fun.
One thing I see about you, too, is you've performed at a lot of schools, which is something I respect, because I feel like a lot of comics would think they're too cool to go to these schools. And this is a really long list of schools. So what is the vibe like when you perform at them? How do you gain the attention of people that are on their cell phones? What is your go-to move?
Yeah, I think when someone's on their cell phone, I've always just gone with like, I'm going to try to make the people who aren't on their cell phones enjoy it.
Yeah.
And then hopefully everyone puts them down. Also, if it ever was like a serious thing that I hated every day, I think I would just ask whoever's introducing me to like just ask everybody to not do that. Luckily though, most of the time college kids are pretty good about watching and listening, especially like if you're there, sometimes it's like on a Friday or Saturday night, and these are kids who they're not going to go out for whatever reason, so they're just happy that there's something cool to do that's not like going to a bar.
Another thing I like about you, too, is you have these very funny shorts. You're very good at acting in a comedic way. Would you ever want to transition that into like a sitcom?
Yeah, I made those shorts because I enjoy doing stuff with my friends, but if the opportunity ever like came up where I got to work in a show like that, I think I would love to do that. It'd be like another really fun way to make people laugh and all that.
So for people that might want to buy your CD Job Opening, what are some of the topics that you have on there?
Yeah, I talk a lot about, well, not a lot, but the beginning it's kind of like my life. Like it starts off with me finishing college and talking about making fun of that a little bit. And then I moved back and live with my parents. So I make fun of myself for that and like have some fun jokes about how that works. And then my first job in high school was I worked at a graveyard. And I played football in high school when we were really bad. And like growing up, like my parents were really strict and some stuff like that. And then it's sort of near the end of the album progresses to kind of closer to where I am now, where like my friends are starting to have kids and sort of how it is to be a guy who's not around kids at all, to have to like hang out with these parents and their kids and stuff.
Where do you want to see yourself in 5 years? Because I'm looking at your schedule, dude. You are a hardworking guy. Do you have a plan on where you want to see this go? Because you're obviously grinding away, and how do you not burn out?
Yeah, well, I feel really lucky to get work. So I think if it got to the point where I was burnt out and I was still getting a lot of offers, I would pull back a little bit. But right now I don't feel that way, and I love doing stand-up, and I love writing, and I feel like when I get to do shows, it's when I get to try out the most stuff and work. So in 5 years, I think I would just love to be doing, have more people come out to the club, like have every show sold out when I come, and have them add shows, and just really be able to sort of have people want to see my stand-up because I'm there, not just because it's a cool comedy club.
For me, my ultimate goal is I want to go from having a podcast to having a show on FM radio or Sirius radio. For you,
Yeah.
Do you want to have your own like Netflix or HBO or Showtime special?
Yeah, I want an HBO. I feel like HBO is the one that everyone says, like when Chris Rock did his, that's when everyone started showing up. And like when Louis did his, that's when everyone started showing up. So I feel like if you can do a really good HBO special, Netflix is also good, but it seems like HBO has stood the test of time of like this really, when you do one that's really good, everyone starts coming to your shows at the clubs, regardless of whether they knew you before.
Now, since you are a comic, and one of the things that comics do is speak their mind and talk about the news, I want to ask you, what is your take on this election? Because you didn't talk about it in your show last night, but as a comic, someone that finds jokes and things, what are you thinking about this?
I think it's like kind of sad, really, how so many people have an opportunity in this country to do whatever they want, which is great. But then when it comes to the election, a lot of it can be controlled by so much money, and then how upset people get when they can't control it with their money. I don't know what he stands for. I'm not a fan of Donald Trump, but I think it's hilarious that the people with the money in the Republican Party are upset because they don't control him. And I just think that's kind of like, it's really unique and interesting. It'll be weird to see how it plays out. And then with like Hillary, is like, I mean, it's weird that like you can commit major crimes and then still like, oh well, I'm the president now. It's interesting to have all that come out. Like with the primaries and stuff, I just feel like it's kind of like a ratings thing, and so I don't pay as much attention until it gets to the two.
Now, the other thing, too, is this election's scaring me because you have a crooked see you next Tuesday, then you have this crazy rich dude. Is there any part of you that thinks the movie Idiocracy is coming to life? Because I know everyone's been saying that, but it's not even a cliche meme. To me, Michael, it's really happening.
No, I think the reason that movie got made is because people thought it would happen like that. That's why the guy thought of the idea. The premise of the movie that the people who aren't like driven and smart and hardworking don't have kids is totally like, yeah, it's hard to have a career and have a family, and like the people that don't do that and the ones that don't think about that just have all the kids and they're raised in that environment. You're not gonna have people that think about things a lot.
What I find scary too about that movie is when they're having the speech and President Mountain Dew Camacho is talking to the crowd, the way the crowd's reacting, Michael, reminds me of Trump rallies. Because I've been watching the news lately. I swear to God, the rioting, like outside the White House, it's literally the election, dude. It's weird.
Yeah. No, it is. Hopefully it'll never get to that. And I think, like, people just have to decide that they don't want it to get to that and, whatever, make their decisions based on that. But, yeah.
Now, one thing I noticed, too, is I think a problem with America in 2016 is we're obsessed with social media. Like, I'm becoming to realize I have an addiction to my phone, and I'm like a crack addict when I don't have it. Do you ever find yourself kind of getting taken away by electronics?
Oh, for sure. Like, I think the worst part about our jobs is kind of like, it's kind of our job to be on social media and like pay attention to that stuff, I think. And so like I'll justify it like that, where I'm like, oh, I have to check Facebook or Twitter, but then I'm just like, oh, who like that? How many people like this? Who's doing that? Whatever. And it's just like, it doesn't seem like a really positive, strong way to spend my time. And so I think it could be benefits to sort of getting away from it, like just scheduling the time that you're on your phone. I think that might be a good way to do it, like only through work hours or whatever you're on your phone.
What's weird about the phone, too, is let's say you put out a really funny tweet and it gets 10,000 retweets. Then you're really happy. Let's say I put out a show and it gets 10,000 listens. We're really happy. But then when we don't get that many listens or we don't get that many likes, we freak out. So it's like even when we have the acceptance or the success, it's never good enough because then we're just let down by the next tweet or the next show. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's like I listened to this book, You Can Be Happy No Matter What, and the way it describes like that kind of thought process is like that's like a thought, and then we make it like a fact by like dwelling on it. So when I get to that point of like, oh, this tweet got a lot of likes or whatever, I immediately try to tweet something else because I know it's not going to be the same, but I have to remind myself that that's not the point, is that I'm doing it because I like stand-up and I like promoting myself and my act and stuff. So I think you have to do that. You can't be dependent on people's response to you for everything. I mean, it's always going to affect it a little bit, but I got to control it.
Isn't it weird, too, as you get more into comedy, or for me, more into the media business, because I'm not in radio right now. I work in promotions, but I want to be on the radio. But isn't it weird once you get further into the business, you go from being a geeky fanboy to then being really motivated because you realize it's a tough business, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think starting out, that's 100% right. Like, you're like, oh, this is great. But then, like, when I moved out to LA, that's when I realized, like, oh, these people are just working really, really hard.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so competitive, and because that's what you have to do.
Now, before I let you go, where can people find your work online, and where can they see your upcoming shows?
Yeah, my website that you mentioned, it's michaelpalascak.com. That's MichaelPalascak. And then I'm on Twitter and Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and it's all under that name. I think my Snapchat name might be Michael Palasnap, because I thought that was funny 2 years ago. But if you search Michael Palascak, I'm sure they'll come up.
Well, dude, keep up the good work. I was thoroughly impressed by your show last night. You have this really humble vibe where you don't even notice that it's the roast of your girlfriend for 30 minutes because you do it so brilliantly. So keep up the good work, dude. I see big things happening within the next year because you're really good at comedy.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. It means a lot.
All right, whenever you're back in Tampa, I would love to have you sit in on the show, too.
Sounds good. I'm in.
All right, keep up the good work, Michael.
Yeah, we'll do.
This has been Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe, saying peace out.
Hoppe Hour. Hoppe Hour.